So that's the product that we have assembled here. That's regarding that. So we'll just take through the Park Hyatt EV. Thank you, everyone. I request the chiefs to come and assemble back on the stage.
Good afternoon. Okay, thank you again. I hope you enjoyed those videos. I think they are very inspirational. Hyatt in India is now 30 hotels strong and growing, and it was our opportunity to play this video for you all. So, good afternoon, and I want to take this opportunity to thank Mrs. Indra Reddy, our chairperson, for being here. Thank you, ma'am, for making it from your busy meeting. Ms. Marie Fukudome, who is also here from Chicago with Hyatt. She's our Director of Environmental Affairs. Mr. Vikas Shah, who is the CEO of WaterHealth. Bharadwaj, who is our partner, and thank you for being here as well. And of course, a star, Mr. Reginald Corbett, who is the Vice President of the Hotels and Restaurant Association of Telangana, who is a big supporter of this activity, and he will then inspire us to move this across Telangana state. Thank you. I just want to start by saying that as Hyatt, we care for people so that they can be their best. And that is our commitment as we go forward into India and across the world. And our purpose defines what we do with our stakeholders as well. And our commitment towards the community and how we foster environment and sustainability as we go forward. There are a lot of things that I'm sure my colleagues will share in terms of the project and in terms of what has gone behind this whole idea. But we started this journey last year in November. I was just talking to her, and she came here to convince us why we need to go with WaterHealth. It was a journey that had a lot of discussion, But I think, today we are proud to say that before the end of the year 2019, we will be the first hotel in South India. There are a couple of hotels in the north, but the first in South India. A very proud moment with our partners, WaterHealth, who we've been working with very closely over this last 1 year to make this project come true. Just some facts for you. Around the world, 1 million plastic bottles are purchased every minute. And that is a big concern because nobody knows what to do with all those plastic bottles once you finish. So in India, for example, people are doing landfills. Just digging it into the ground, putting it where it, hiding it under the soil or under the ground with no real plan of what to do with this plastic. And our contribution to that is 2.5 lakhs a year. So we took a commitment and a stand on behalf of Hyatt, which also believes very strongly of how we're going to reduce plastic by 2021, as to what we will do is reduce it by 2.5 lakhs in this hotel by switching over to glass bottles. So that's going to be the big endeavor for us. We've obviously tied up with WaterHealth, and they are our partners through this journey, and we hope that through this journey we will also be able to take this across our other hotels in India very shortly. I want to thank Gayatri Hotels, our owning company, who have been instrumental in helping us put this whole project together. The family, both Dr. Subirama Reddy and Mrs. Indra Reddy, have both been great supporters and are very, very concerned about the environment. So again, thank you, ma'am. And thank you.
That was Thomas, General Manager of Park Hyatt. So I invite Mr. Vikas to give a few words.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I think since the media has aggregated here and we have talked about what businesses or what operations we are running, I thought in all fairness, it may also set the context of talking briefly about what is happening in water in the world and India specifically, because at the end of the day, you do need some data to... Okay. So I thought you would need some data to go back to your editorial staff and to get their concurrence to write something about water in India and globally. Yeah. So this is a brief presentation, and post the presentation you can have a Q&A if you have any questions regarding that. So all of you are aware that 70% of the planet is water, and I think you would have read this in your geography lessons when you were kids. However, what many people don't understand is that a very small fraction of that is extractable economically for human consumption, which is fresh water, which is 0.1%. Because most of the water, even though it's 2.5%, is actually locked as glaciers in the glaciers and in the snow-capped peaks of the world, and therefore it cannot be extracted economically across the world. It's only 0.1%, majority of which is surface water, and then small part is groundwater, which is known as the aquifer. Yeah? Coming specific to India, by 2040, India will be one of the water-stressed countries in the world, the way we are extracting water right now. But there are ramifications of that. There are implications which are far grave, and one needs to understand that in the context of what we're trying to do here, in the context of what the world has to do globally in order to address this problem. Unfortunately, however, the distribution of water is not equitable. For example, US has about 4% of the global population, but about 16% of water reserves. In India, it's exactly the reverse. It has about 17% of the global population, but about 4% of the water reserves, and that's depleting fast because there is so much demand for clean and safe water. Yeah? In India, specifically, there are three sectors which consume water the most, which is agriculture, industry, domestic. What we have tried to do here, and it may not be the politically best thing to say, but we have tried to do here is explain how each sector is using or consuming water. So the best scenario is an idealistic scenario where you're consuming water in the best possible way. And then there is a compliant scenario, there is a wasteful scenario, and an inefficient scenario. As you would know, we don't follow the best agricultural practices. So the extraction of water, given the free power, is quite rampant. So even a state like Telangana, which is actually somewhat water deficient, you have paddy fields as you go outside of the city. And that is because people like to eat rice. So just because the choice of the cultivation is rice doesn't mean that the area should be conducive for that cultivation. So that's inefficiency.
As far as the industry is concerned, you'll see that's by and large compliant because it has no choice. It will lose its license to operate if they don't conform to the prevailing regulations of water discharge and management. And finally, domestic consumption. By and large, the fee for water or the tariff for water is so low that nobody would even know it vis-a-vis your power tariff. So with the result, there is an element of wastefulness that creeps into the usage of water in the domestic segment. So there are solutions. There is a solution with regard to using water value chain very efficiently in the entire value chain. I'll explain to you in the next slide. And there is also a solution in case you make substantial investment from a capital expenditure standpoint, be it for desalination plant here, which is what Chennai has done by extracting water, which is, by the way, very expensive. It's about 6 paisa per liter. But because there's no other alternative in the short term, this could be one of the capital intensive options. Or the favorite program that the government is currently pursuing, which is interlinking the rivers in the mainland of the country. Now, there are implications for this because the moment you start interlinking the rivers, you tend to start playing with nature, and there's an aspect of flora and fauna trying not necessarily to survive and therefore leading to some unintended consequences. Be as it may, these are options available for addressing the deficiency of water in the country. Yeah? I will then zero in on, I'll not go into the capital intensive options, I'll talk about what are the efficiency measures available to people in the world, especially Indians, to address this particular issue. So if you see this entire water value chain starts from abstraction, storage, treatment, distribution, recycle, and disposal. Yeah? At every stage, there could be an efficiency that could be addressed, and therefore you could plow it back into the entire water loop to ensure that you use the same water multiple times before you discharge it as waste. Yeah? And within that, I will specifically talk about these 3 sections: treatment, distribution, recycle. And this is what WaterHealth does, by the way. We do many other things also, but I think to the extent of this audience, let me confine myself to something which is more palatable and specific. So if you look at those 3 pieces which I talked about, treatment, distribution, and recycle, you have 2 choices. Choice number 1, do these with a centralized model. Choice number 2, do these with a decentralized model. Now, worldwide and globally, the centralized and the decentralized model are at loggerheads because one has certain pros and cons, so does the other. And be it a power plant, be it a water plant, that's the way life goes. What we've tried to do here is narrate for you the pros and cons of the centralized model versus decentralized model. WaterHealth is very heavily predicated and supportive of the decentralized model versus the centralized model because the centralized model, in our wisdom and knowledge, places substantial amount of pressure and unintended consequences on nature. Key among them is the fact that if you are setting up a centralized water purification plant, your capital expenditure per beneficiary is anywhere upwards of 1,500 rupees versus a mere 200 rupees per beneficiary for a decentralized model. It can take about 3 years. This takes about less than 10 weeks. It's a complex design. This is relatively simple. Central process, local process requires large resources of rivers and dams because you're extracting millions of liters of waters from a single location versus something which you're doing locally with lakes, ponds, or aquifer. And finally, environmental impact is quite minimal. It's minimal here, and it's quite large there. And finally, plant breakdown. If the plant breaks down, the whole system comes to a standstill here. Even if one plant breaks down, the rest of the plants continues to run. So that's the way in which you insulate the failure. With that said, let's talk about WaterHealth. So the company was set up 12 years ago with the vision of providing scalable, safe, affordable water solutions to people, and the great vision was to reach 100 million consumers by 2020. Initially, the progress was very slow, but we finally are serving about 10 million consumers, so that's been a little bit of an impetus to our growth, and you reach a tipping point in most business lines. That's, I think, where we are currently. Yeah. We are present in West Africa and India, about 1,000 plants in India and growing exponentially in Africa. We look at the world from 2 worlds. The first world is the consumer world, where community and people at large need clean, safe water affordably and reliably. And then there's the commercial world, which also needs the same water for different reasons. And therefore, because it's not a one-size-fits-all, anything that we do has to have a specific advantage and applicability given the kind of segment that it's addressing. So I'll not get into the details of that, but these are broadly the solutions. By the way, to the extent of this particular audience, the solution that you'll be seeing post this meeting is the can and the bottling plant which is displayed here. Yeah? For the consumer world, which I talked about, which is the first world, what we do is we set up a public-private partnership with the local community, and we set up a community water system, which we showed in the previous slide, for 25 years and provides safe water to the people.